Welcome back, Slayers. We have the first Descendant hotfix 1.1.3 today. Everything should be up and finalized. A little bug fix, I guess, should be going out later today because I was actually experiencing a strobing problem with the game. I would log in, I'll show it here when we're editing it. I'll give you guys like 10 seconds. There was a strobing warning effect. So kind of skip ahead a little bit, but basically the screen would just be going in and out. It's really unplayable. So I'll also update you guys in the comments. It could just be in Albion. I'll log in a third time after we're done editing in here, and then I'll let you guys know in the comments. Until they fix that, I won't be playing it today. But nonetheless, we have hotfix 1.1.3 content improvements. So now, as they've mentioned a few weeks prior, they'll be making the invasion public. So now you can do public operations in the invasion. Also, the number of monsters increases depending on the number of participants. So if you find it too easy now in solo and you would like an added challenge, you might want to group up as the monsters will be increased. Now regarding the Order of Truth, interacting with a drone now makes other drones despawn. Over in the fortress, the Fallen Ark Void Fragment has been changed. They've essentially expanded the terrain. Interesting here. I'm guessing this is the bunny cave one here. That they expanded the terrain. I think that's a minor thing. I don't think that's affecting any of the spawns. You should still be able to go over in the corner and just hit everything from that one corner. Did you say additionally, additional snipers have been placed for the second round? Like I said, that shouldn't matter. Now, traps in certain dungeons have been modified or deleted. These ones are as follow over in the Sterile Land Unknown Laboratory. On hard mode, mind you. Now, the Agnet Desert, Pelago Ossuary, normal and hard. The Asylum, normal and hard. White Knight Gulch, normal and hard. Agios Haven, normal hard. Old Mystery, normal and hard. Then they've did a overworked amount of HP orbs and ammo dropped by scout monsters roaming the field has increased. Descendant info as well. Yujin's hyper-reactive healing ground skill now heals HP after granting purification rather than before. Now, improve certain skills of Freyna and Esiemo. Now, you may have seen videos yesterday kind of going over like a pre that things would be changed. There was no need for that. Just wait till today and give you guys everything that they actually changed. So now we have a hefty of things to go over regarding Freyna to start. Room Zero Trauma. They fixed an issue where the Room Zero Trauma was set as poison, making it impossible to deal damage to the toxic Colossus. Now we have Contagion Links changes. The effects of Contagion Links has been changed as follows. Killing an enemy afflicted with Room Zero Trauma has a chance to spawn a toxic puddle on the place where the enemy was killed. Enemies receive damage and get inflicted with Room Zero Trauma upon contact with the toxic puddle. The damage of the trauma has been increased and not giving you an actual value. So later when we do a follow-up video, it'll probably be around the time Ultimate Freyna gets released. We'll do the damage crunching there. It'd be nice if they actually gave you more of the values in these notes when, they make the changes. But that just gives us creators something else to kind of work on. It has been adjusted to apply the toxic reaction effect instead of poison. Now, the toxic reaction effect deals more damage compared to the previous poison effect and can be applied simultaneously with panic, despair, decay, and nightmare effects. Now, the venom trauma increased the damage of Room Zero Trauma and it now inflicts panic rather than poison. Panic effect deals more damage than poison did previously and can be inflicted together with the toxic reaction, so double the damage. Despair, decay, and nightmare increase the damage of the projectile, increase the duration and range of toxic puddle, and added continuous damage. Now you could always, increase the duration and range based on the mods, but just flat out the skill itself is getting buffed by those parameters. Now going over the defense mechanism and toxic stimulation, we've increased the damage of the trauma that applies and it inflicts despair rather than poison. The despair effect deals more damage than poison did previously, and can be inflicted together with toxic reaction, panic, decay, and nightmare. increase the chance to inflict the room 0 trauma. So essentially, you can proc all of these on the targets. Now, Putrid Venom and Venom Synthesis, the Toxic Swamp and Toxic Footprint now inflict room 0 trauma instead of poison. Room 0 trauma now inflict decay rather than poison. The decay effect deals more damage than poison did, can be inflicted together with all the other ones. Their Toxic Reaction, Panic, Despair, and Nightmare. One final one, Venom Baptism. Essentially, overall, major damage buffs across the board. Increase the damage of the unique weapon, decrease the damage of room 0 trauma, and it now inflicts Nightmare rather than poison. Nightmare effect deals less damage than poison did previously. Keep this one in mind. On that unique weapon, that's going to be dealing less damage than the poison did previously, but it can still be inflicted together with all of the other reactions. Now, Contagion, defeating an enemy now inflicts room 0 trauma instead of poison. This change is applied together with other changes made to skills with this patch. It increases the number of toxic puddles spawning from Contagion links. Room 0 trauma caused by skills with a Contagion module does not inflict Toxic Reaction, Panic, Despair, Decay, or Nightmare. Going over Neurotoxin Synthesis, this change is applied together with other changes made to skills with this patch. It also increased the damage of the room 0 trauma. The overall major Freyna buffs ahead of that ultimate Freyna. So as of right now, we can see how everything is planned out and how it's working, which is very great by the team. So if anything else needs to be tweaked prior to Ultimate Freyna's release, they have enough time to do so. Alrighty, now the changes regarding Kyle. So, Experienced Technician decreased its shield recovery. In exchange, the cooldown has been decreased. Once again, none of these values, so if there's more creators kind of going over the character, I do have Kyle crafted as well as Freyna, so I can actually, go into those right away. We're still working on getting Esiemo crafted. I'm pretty much just working on other things, so it won't be an Esiemo video for a while, but we can definitely crank out that Kyle and Freyna video for you guys this week. Now, you can now recover a certain amount of magnetic force upon the activation, even if no enemies are hit by the effect. Meanwhile, you will recover more magnetic force depending on the number of enemies hit. So, maybe stacking on range increases can help with this benefit. And they've decreased the stat cooldown while increasing the damage. Again, do not know the exact values. Saying maybe it's probably maybe somewhere between 5 to 10%. Nothing too overtly crazy. Magnetic Bulwark and Diamagnetic Bulwark. While using the skill, you can now recover the force by a certain percentage of max shield over time. We're going to get into this max shield thing in a second because we do have a new mod that's going to make anything regarding max shield crazy. So Kyle is going to be pushing out some extreme damage now for real. And not, bugged out. Now the shield cost while using the skill has also been slightly increased. The barrier from Magnetic Bulwark is now affected by Kyle's attribute Resistance. And the barrier's HP is now more proportional to Kyle's shield. Increase the cooldown of the Magnetic Bulwark. Now the Magnetism, Spurt, and Self-Directed Eruption, they've increased the skill effect range. The Spurt skill now heals your shield as well as your allies' shields. Ooh. Now costs more magnetic force and the skill cooldown has been increased. Slightly increased the skill power modifier for the damage of Magnetism Spurt while slightly decreasing the additional damage of the force modifier. When the self-directed eruption skill ends, it no longer heals the shields of allies, it now heals your shield instead. The duration of traction is increased. Increase the skill power modifier for the damage of self-directed eruption while slightly decreasing the additional damage magnetic force modifier. So some buffs in certain areas, and then little drawbacks as well to keep everything in line. I think where they're saying slightly decreasing the additional damage, you shouldn't feel that too much. Now, the superconductivity thrusters and superconductive bombing greatly increased the damage of superconductivity thrusters while increasing the cooldown. Superconductive bombing skill is now affected by a skill duration increase stat. Firing the bomb now costs magnetic force as an absolute value rather than a percentage. That's huge. You're now immune to knockback and knockdown while using superconductivity thrusters or superconductive bombing. Really quick, we haven't really worked on our Kyle, but essentially, right, if you were any character, right, you're using the skills and whatnot and you stack all that cooldown, probably get them skills down pretty quick to recharge. So them increasing the cooldown, I don't think it'd be too significant. If anything, you may just, I guess, get cooldown on the reactor. I would assume the value that is being increased would cancel out if you have that percent value of cooldown on your reactor. I don't think it'll be too much of a big difference with those cooldown changes. Now, Esiemo. Hefty amount of Esiemo, guys. Let's go. Let's see if he's more useful now. The advantageous habit. The effect is now triggered when you are hit instead of when your shield is depleted. Using skills now reduces the cooldown of the advantageous habit by a certain amount. They've increased the cooldown. Now, time bomb skills can now be used while sprinting, and the aftercast delay has been adjusted. Projectile speed has also been slightly increased. Now, blasting cluster bomb, you can now switch to the other actions early when using the skill. No longer costs MP. The cooldown has been decreased. The blast skill is now affected by more bombs and increased the damage based on the number of bombs. The explosives that spawn upon using the cluster bomb skill now explodes earlier than before. The number and damage of explosives have been increased, and the explosion range has been reduced. The damage of cluster bomb now increases based on the number of bombs. You have the guided landmine. The skill can now be activated while moving. You can perform other actions when using the skill quicker than before. Attach bomb now takes longer to automatically explode. Slightly increase the travel speed of installed guided landmines toward enemies. The installed guided mines now can also be exploded with blast. So more, I guess, at ease of use to the skills. Want to look back here again. Essentially increasing the damage based on the number of bombs, so you want to get as much of those out as possible to really see some major damage. Now going over the arcade explosion, they've simplified the skill's animation. Now you're immune to knockback and knockdown while using the skill. They've increased the duration of madness. Its effects now include an increase of skill power. That can be very huge. They just say an increase, no greatly increase or a slight increase, just an increase. So it has to really, there'd be, major testing done to see how significant that is. An explosive evade, increase the maximum number of guided landmines that can be installed. Explosive propaganda, you can now use the skill while moving. The skill can be stacked now and the cooldown has decreased slightly. An installed explosive propaganda is now properly affected by Esiemo's HP and defense, and its damage has been slightly reduced. Interesting. That creative explosion simplified the skill animation. Also immune to knockback and knockdown while using the skill. The number of bombs that affect the blast skill when equipped with the explosion skill module has been increased. Decrease the skill power modifier, increase per stack. Increase the duration of madness, also increase the cooldown decrease effect. I don't know how significant these will be for him, but hopefully it's enough to, I guess, make him more usable. Righty, moving on. Those are out of the way. I've mentioned we're getting 2 new modules, guys. So we have the Biosync Shield. Reduce HP recovery from HP ores by a certain amount and instead heals the shield by the set amount. So if you're stacking a bunch of shield, this may be something you may want to use. Probably for Ajax, most likely. Even Kyle could use this pretty good. We also have Last Stand. When using a skill to attack enemies, consumes all of your shield to deal additional damage equivalent to a certain percentage of the total damage. It's again something for Kyle. Like when we had that bug and everyone was doing 40 million on his little makeshift Titan Thunder Crash. This should essentially get you closer to being able to do that naturally with consuming all of your shields. The more shields you stack, additional damage equivalent to a certain percentage of the total damage. it should give you a considerable increase. And the additional damage has a base value, and the value increases based on the amount of shield consumed. So the more shield consumed, the more damage. So Kyle should be hitting really hard now, based on, stacking that last stand, having a bunch of shield and getting that consumed. And after activation, it recovers shield by a certain percentage of the max shield every second for a certain period of time. It has a cooldown. So essentially, you consume all of your shield, do a big burst of damage, stay out of line of sight for a little bit so that shield can actually recover. Now, we would have to test it, but assuming you take a little damage, the shield probably won't recover anymore. So let's keep that in mind. Now, some UI and UX improvements. You can now check recommended stats for each intercept battle. Oh, that's huge. This is a huge one. You being able to check the recommended stats for each intercept battle. Now, recommended stats would include weapon DPS, max HP, max shield, defense, and resistance per attribute. We've already seen resistance per attribute, but them letting you know recommended weapon DPS, max HP, shield, and defense is huge. So, a more ease of use for new players getting into the intercept battles. You can actually gauge yourself just looking at those. So intercept battles hopefully will go a bit more smooth in the random matchmaking. Now, ultimate weapons will no longer be filtered as junk regardless of the exclude from junk settings. This is a skill issue. If you deconstructed one of your yellow ultimate weapons, this is a skill issue. In order to dismantle an ultimate weapon, you need to manually designate it as junk. And the max capacity up modules now display capacity with the plus sign in the module UI. Tracked items in the research UI will no longer be untracked when the research is completed. In no resurrection zones of infiltration operations. The system message will tell you that you cannot abandon rescue during the down but not out state. You can now set whether to run or sprint by default for movement in game options. Let's go, guys. If you have stick drift like me, this is huge. Now you don't have to push it in, you just have to push it forward. Yeah. Now the range of possible values for controller, dead zone settings in game options, I've been pleading for this, has been increased from 20 to 40 to 0 to 99. Once again, if you have stick drift, this is going to be very appealing to you. You can now set controller vibration intensity to weak in game options. Terrain damage in every field now reduces shield first. If you're running around with Bunny like me and you jump, you hit one of those explosive barrels, it's going to attack that shield first before your HP. Survival time is the same as before. Customized spawn settings have been moved to the Descendant skins menu. Essentially, you can have a certain spawn for each of your Descendant. A storage object under the workbench in Albion has been moved to the near mailbox above. Pretty much show you here. Pretty much just some clean things, overhaul of some areas, making things look more sleek. We have some optimization changes as well. Improved game CPU performance, frame generation improvements and changes. Fix an issue where enabling AMD frame generation often caused frame drops. Now enable AMD frame generation on PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Removed a restriction where the option could only be enabled on a 120 Hz display on consoles. You can now choose frame generation regardless of the upscale you're using on PC. However, NVIDIA frame generation can only be enabled on GeForce 40 series or higher. Essentially show you the settings here to be right under your VSync. Pretty much just an overhaul, guys. More miscellaneous things here. You now view spawn/despawn animations for each Descendant, customize. Able to rewatch cinematics. Something going over the traces here. You guys can pause here if you care about the more miscellaneous things here. Do have a lot there. Some director comments regarding that as well. Now you can rewatch cinematics after finishing the story with Haley. You've acquired with the ultimate Descendant you've worked hard to get. The preview and field button, customize UI. Preview the appearance and paint color with an actual field as the background. Some shop things, they do have a lot more bundles. They've essentially swapped out the previous ultimate bundles and replaced them with new ones. Make a dedicated video to that. Some bug fixes and other things of that nature. Pretty much a lot, guys. A whole overhaul. If I would told you guys what they would do. We have one last big content update, which will be on October 10th. But in between now and then, and even after then, we're going to get regular hot fixes like this, essentially overhauling systems. So yeah, a lot more improvements going. I'll then make a separate dedicated video, depending on when this one is up, going over the director's additional comments. We do have an additional one here to go over. Essentially, their plan after the October 10th update. I hope you guys enjoyed Hotfix 1.1.3. I'll also leave a link to the article so you can play catch up and kind of go over some things you may be more, worried about.